It was a brief trip to the edge of space. An all-women crew, including pop star Katy Perry, on the first all-female spaceflight in over half a century. The group took off aboard a Blue Origin rocket, the space company owned by billionaire Jeff Bezos. The women are now safely back on Earth after a trip lasting just 11 minutes.
A brief expedition into space. On board, 6 women, including pop star Katy Perry and TV host Gayle King. Their trip, the first all-female spaceflight in more than 60 years.
We haven't seen it. I want to see it.
3, take us space!
Earlier, crowds gathered to watch the launch. Among other celebrities, King's longtime friend Oprah Winfrey, the one who convinced her friend to go on this adventure.
There's only one time that all the women are going up for the first time. You know, there will be other trips, but there's only one first time.
Jeff Bezos, the company's founder, was in the crowd looking on as the rocket cleared the launch tower. So were celebrities Kris Jenner and Khloe Kardashian and Perry's family. On the way back down to Earth, more screaming could be heard. But the capsule made a soft landing on the Texas plains, 3 kilometers from the launch pad.
What happened to us was not a ride. This was a bona fide friggin' flight. But the best part was when we got back in our seats after 0 G's, Katy sang, "What a Wonderful World."
She did?
Isn't that nice?
Oh, come on.
She sang, "What a wonderful world. I see dreams." Oh, yes.
Okay.
As the pop singer left the capsule, she explained why she chose to sing the Louis Armstrong classic.
It's about a collective energy in there. It's about us. It's about making space for future women and taking up space and belonging. And it's about this wonderful world that we see right out there and appreciating it. This is all for the benefit of Earth.
Her crewmates were still processing as they touched the ground again.
Now the party starts, right?
It was the most incredible experience of my life to be up there and see such vast darkness in space and look down on our planet. The moon was so beautiful, and that was I felt like that was a special gift just for me.
And here they come. Here we go.
The trip was the latest in space tourism, a new hobby for the rich and famous to enter the zero-gravity realm, traditionally dominated by professional astronauts.
This is one of our traditions.
Keith Cowing joins me from Washington. He's editor of the space blog NASAWatch.com. A brief and expensive rocket ride for rich people into space. Maybe not expensive for them, but for us. How long were they actually up there, though, experiencing zero gravity?
It's about a 20-minute flight, and you get to the peak of your flight with this little capsule here, and for about 5 minutes or so, you're weightless. And then when you come back down, you feel the Earth's gravity again. So it's I've done the zero gravity flights, and you only get 20 seconds. So this is a bit of a bonus if you want to do this. But the real thing is when you go up into space and stay there, and that's kind of the next thing that everybody wants to do.
And when they were up there experiencing weightlessness, I believe there was some sort of science undertaken. Would you say science was the winner here, or was this more of a PR stunt for Blue Origin?
Well, it where you stand depends where you sit, or in this case, where you float. And each of these flights, you can fly this capsule without people on board. And many times they've done this, and they fill it up with science, and NASA and other agencies have bought space on there. So you can do real science with this. But when there's people in there, there's also some science on it as well. So it's like being on a jet plane, and you may be the passenger, but there may be somebody's luggage or scientific experiments down in the cargo hold. So it's always a mix. But again, is this a joyride? I'm sure everybody had a lot of joy, but it's like anything. It starts off with, being able to buy big tickets, but eventually, it's like air travel. It used to be real expensive, and now it's kind of cheap.
In this case, the rocket burned hydrogen and oxygen, meaning the main emission was water. Is that something to celebrate clean launches into space?
Yeah, it is. This is a variety of ways to get things into space. Some of them are rather dirty, and they're efficient, but they're dirty. And when you fly a hydrogen-oxygen mission, you're pretty much pushing water back out. And it has a lot of energy that's involved in it because it starts out as very cold materials. So, yeah, it's a green flight for all intents and purposes.
And just let me ask, why aren't there more women in the space industry?
Well, actually, there are. The distinguishing thing here is there were 6 people on this flight, and they were all women. Women have been flying of America for over 30 years. You've had women commanding the space shuttle missions. You have women commanding space stations. One woman, there's several up there right now. So it's just so happens that everybody on the spaceship was a female. That was the distinguishing thing. It had to happen the first time, and it happened today, but it won't be the last time, rest assured.
Good to hear. Keith Cowing, editor of NASAWatch.com. Thank you very much for bringing us all the intriguing details of that very brief flight.
Let's get more on this from Meganne Christian, who is a reserve astronaut with the European Space Agency. She's also exploration commercialisation lead for the UK Space Agency and joins us from London. Welcome to DW. They were up there for 11 minutes. Was there any scientific benefit in this launch?
There were 2 scientific experiments, particularly looking into women's health, and they were a collaboration also with the Vietnamese Space Agency. So they showed that example of international collaboration. But really, it was just a short flight. It was only 11 minutes. And the really powerful message of this flight is that, it can represent women. It can represent people of many different types, and children can look up to them and look for potentially a career in space in the future.
Really, you don't see this just as being a massive PR stunt for Jeff Bezos' company?
I do understand how it can look that way, but it is the first time that a crew of all women has been to space without men. It is a little bit sad that hasn't happened before, but there can't be a bad thing about that. It has happened with space tourism, and that just means that there will be more opportunities to go to space in the future. It's very different to a long-duration mission to the International Space Station. I wouldn't be calling these women astronauts, but they have been to space. They've had the outlook on Earth. They may have experienced the overview effect, feeling that they really need to protect our planet and everything on it. So if they can get that message out to their audiences, and they do have large audiences, then I would count that as a win.
Let's talk about this disparity in the industry. The UN tells us that women make up only about 20% of the workforce in the aerospace industry and only about 11% of astronauts. Why are women so underrepresented?
It comes from the tradition, really. I mean, when spaceflight started in the 1960s, it was really only open to test pilots and male test pilots at that. And it's taken a long time to get past that. However, there are things that are looking good. So, for example, my class of astronauts in the European Space Agency, almost half of us are women. So things are changing. Again, it's perhaps a little later than we would have liked. But, examples like this show people that there shouldn't be these stereotypes of people who are geniuses that work in the space industry. That's not the only kind of representation that we need. We need people from all kinds of backgrounds, and that's not just for astronauts, that's also for across the space sector, from space law through to engineering and sciences.
And tell us about the environmental impact of this mission, which wasn't fueled using explosive hydrocarbons.
No, this mission was fueled using hydrogen and oxygen propellants, and when they combine, the only emission is water. So that does mean that it is much better for the environment, let's say, because it isn't releasing hydrocarbons into the atmosphere.
And I just wonder if we can send a rocket into space using fuel that turns into water. How long before we can use that technology on the Earth to, I don't know, power cars. Why aren't we doing that now?
We are doing that to a limited degree. So hydrogen fuel cell cars, for example, use exactly that kind of technology, combining hydrogen and oxygen. It's just there is a whole lot of infrastructure that needs to go into it for it to work. And this was actually the topic of my PhD thesis, which was around storing that hydrogen and how you can store a lot of hydrogen in a small amount of space. So there are still a few technological challenges to overcome and also some infrastructure.
You said that there were scientific experiments were conducted during this 11-minute flight. What can you achieve in 11 minutes? Just talk us through what these experiments were. You said they were to do with women's health.
That's all the information that I have heard about these experiments, unfortunately. They are to do with women's health. But there is a lot of research that you can do in just a short period of time that kind of leads into longer duration spaceflight. So even we use parabolic flights, for example, which only give you about 22 seconds of microgravity, but that's enough to give you an indication of whether, for example, a technology will work in conditions of weightlessness so that you can then go on to test it for longer durations.
So this was part scientific, part tourism, this flight?
I would say it was mostly tourism. There was a little bit of science on board, but yes, mostly tourism. And that is going to be interesting for what the future holds. Hopefully the prices will come down with companies like this taking people to space, and so that more and more people will be able to go in the future.
OK, thanks for talking us through that, Meg. Astronaut Meganne Christian in London.